As you will remember, we responded to 2 major outage events, and we were able to restore power to more than 1.1 million customers through those major events. That includes what I would term as a very rapid and effective response to the fire at the Montecilla substation on June the 10th, a failure that caused a cascading loss of generation and service interruption approaching 900,000 customers. As you'll be aware and as you'll remember, LUMA was able to restore electricity to those customers in roughly 26 hours, and perhaps most importantly, with no injuries, either as a result of the incident or as a result of the recovery. We are very grateful to the Puerto Rico Emergency Services as well as PREPA and the other generators that were able to support this event. To me, this is one example of the preparedness and the efforts that we put in to being ready for service commencement. LUMA is a customer-centric company. We are focused on delivering to all of our customers an exceptional service and experience. And there are many ways for our customers to reach out to us and receive the services we need. As you would all know, I would characterize our first month of operation as quite effective and yet not without its challenges, particularly for the many LUMA employees who were harassed and intimidated, as a result of their choice to join LUMA and begin to make real and meaningful change for Puerto Ricans' electric customers. We took and we are continuing to take significant steps to ensure the safety and the well-being of our employees. You will remember that we faced significant access blockages to key facilities, as well as vandalism to our fleet and some of our office buildings. We were forced to go to court in order to access our warehouse as well as our trucks. Our customer tools were the target of a denial of service attack to our LUMA customer portal and our mobile application. As a result, many of our customers had difficulty accessing information related to our account. We and our customers were the victims of a targeted email and phone call fraud campaign. We are very grateful for the support we've received from both the Puerto Rico and the federal agencies as we continue to work through these clearly targeted attempts to disrupt or otherwise impede this very important transition. And we thank our customers for their patience as we all manage through these challenges. Despite all of the roadblocks, we've risen above it, and I'm more optimistic than ever we have the right team, a solid plan, and a clear path in order to fulfill our mission for all of Puerto Rico. And with that, I'll take your questions.
If you could please use the hand raise option to ask your questions, and we'll start taking them now.
Hello, good morning.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Jose Alvarado from Caribbean Business. Yesterday, the PREB announced a 7.6% rate increase. They say it's temporary due to higher fuel prices. Have you identified certain plants that, due to the fact that they consume a higher priced fuel, are inefficient? And since you control the distribution of energy through Montecillos, are you going to deal with that in terms of distributing energy from more efficient plants?
And the short answer is yes. I maybe two remarks on the PREB's announcement. So absolutely, our role is to, within what we would call security reserve margins. So in order to make sure we have enough generation available, that's our first priority. And then our second priority is to dispatch that generation, the least cost generation and we work through a dispatch stack, and so the lowest cost generation is produced first, and we work our way up through the stack as load increases through the day. So that's what we do every single day, and we continue to make sure that the lowest cost generation is always operated first. It's a very important concept in the dispatch of that generation. So yes, I will say, however, the generation plants are the generation plants, and so we only have those resources available that presently exist today in Puerto Rico. There's much to do moving forward in terms of more renewables and more low-cost generation for Puerto Rico. But for today, we work with what we have. I think the other thing I would offer is, as you rightly point out, LUMA's role is to produce that quarterly calculation on behalf of PREPA and on behalf of those generation costs, and then submit it to the PREB, and then the PREB reviews and approves it accordingly.
So, to ask, so we'll expect then that we wouldn't have such large price increases in rates in the future. These would be a little lower since you were going to dispatch perhaps plants that have more, perhaps natural gas, or more cheaper renewables in going forward.
Well, I think, to be, just so we're all clear on expectations, I think over the medium and longer term, yes, there will be options brought into the system that will provide lower cost generation. That doesn't change the fact that we have these relatively old and relatively inefficient oil-fired plant. Many of them are oil-fired plants today, and so the majority of the cost that gets recalculated every quarter is a function, frankly, of both which power plants are operated, but also the cost of the fuel itself.
Okay. And my other question is, how many outages do we have currently? Because I've seen the map, and I know some places where there have been outages, but they have not been reflected on the LUMA map.
I haven't checked kind of shortly, but we are, I would say in the last 10 days or so, we're kind of down to roughly 250 or approaching 200 outages that begin to get reported and then get addressed either in the same day or in the subsequent day. We're back down. Maybe another way to characterize it is we're back down to, or at least approaching, what PREPA's historical outage rate has looked like.
That was 3,000, right?
Well, no, I said 200, in the 200 outage mark. When I talk about an outage, I suppose I talk about something that's broken. I think when I checked over the last couple of days, that is in the order of 2,000 to 3,000 customers that are impacted as a result of those, call it 200 to 250 outages.
The causes for these outages, what have you found mostly?
Yeah, it probably won't be a surprise to anyone, but many cases it's vegetation, overgrown vegetation that has come into contact with a line. In many cases, it's mechanical failures of distribution and transmission lines from age, from fatigue, from lack of maintenance in many cases, and some of the more substantial outages that we see on feeders and associated pieces of equipment, again, are down to maintenance of that equipment and the age and the fragility of the system.
All right, thank you.
I don't see any hands up. Do we have any more questions? Gerardo Alvarado, go ahead.
Okay.
Buenos días a todos. Good morning. Stensby, I have two questions. The first one is some citizens have denounced on social media that LUMA, that they are receiving estimated bills because LUMA are not reading the meters. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, I'm certain there are customers that are receiving estimated bills. There was a lot of activity in PREPA that slowed in the last few months, including some of PREPA's meter reading, and so the billing cycle works on, we issue bills based on historical meter reads. I can confirm that we are out reading meters, and we have been. I can also advise people that, should they wish, they're able to confirm their own meter read and submit it through our call center in order to avoid unnecessary estimates of their bills. Estimated bills are not. The other thing I would say is,
why are they receiving estimated bills? I don't get the reason.
Because a lot of the meter reading had stopped leading up to service commencement. I don't have the reason why it wasn't occurring, but it had slowed and stopped. I would also advise that it's not unusual for customers. I'm told it's not unusual for customers to receive estimated bills historically from PREPA, and all of us would like to get much better, and we will get much better at bill reading and the impacts of estimated bills.
Okay, and my second question is, how's the inventory of materials to attend any emergencies during the hurricane season?
Yeah, so you've heard us talk about this before, I'm sure, but we have in the neighborhood of $130 million of inventory at the Palo Seco warehouse, both to support ongoing operations, but frankly, much of it or most of it is there in case of large storms or hurricanes. We also continue to have the excess fleet that we got last year to Puerto Rico in order to support additional teams should we need them.
Silvia.
Good morning. Are you up to the amount of employees that you want to have and you need, or are you going to continue recruiting more employees? And what kind of employees would you be recruiting?
So not to be cute, Sylvia, but the answer to both of your questions is yes. We are, with the approximate 2,500 employees we have right now, we are up to the number that we currently require, but we are absolutely hiring. And the reason we continue to hire is we continue to grow our organization as we begin to shift from simply operating the T&D system to beginning to transform and rebuild the T&D system. Our federal funds teams are busy working with FEMA to advance some of the FEMA funding work. As you know, we need to get ourselves up to the task of spending roughly $1 billion a year over the next decade. And you've probably all heard me say before, it's actually very difficult to spend $1 billion a year well. And so the majority of, not all, but the majority of our hiring and our growth through 2021 and 2022 will be continuing to hire in support of that very large capital infrastructure business that we're creating and developing.
I have another question.
I would tell you that we're hiring kind of across the departments. We will continue to to look for great and enthusiastic people.
I have another question. Is there a plan to improve your maps so that it will reflect more precisely how many people are without service and where are these people and how many there are, because those maps do not reflect the reality in the field?
The short answer is yes, absolutely. It's very important to us. We are currently using the outage management system, it's called, that PREPA was using. And you can tell from our app and our website, you can kind of get a flavor of where we would like to be able to communicate that information. And that is absolutely in one of our most important short-term plans, is to be able to communicate just what you said. Where are the outages? How many customers are impacted? And most importantly, on top of that, is what is our view of the response or estimated time to repair, as we would call it. So you will see improvements both on our website and our app, over the following months as we get our OMS in a better state and more accurate.
Adriana de Jesus.
Yeah, hi. Good morning to everybody. I got word, maybe this is a rumor, but I'd like you to confirm or clarify. Some people are saying you're hiring celadores, I don't know Spanish, the English term, from the state. Yeah, from the States, and they leave in a short period of time in order to meet the necessities you have of those certain type of workers. Is that true, or are all your celadores here in Puerto Rico permanently?
No, we have brought in resources from our parent companies, including some line workers, in order to supplement some of our Puerto Rican direct hires, and we've done that in these early few weeks in order to make sure that number one, we have enough resource in order to help everyone understand and work safely, make sure we're using the most advanced safety and work practices, and there will come a time when for sure, when we thank those people that did come in from the mainland U.S. for their support, and we're back to relying on absolutely our fully trained and qualified LUMA resources. But it's true, we did bring in some additional help.
Has that been cost effective for the company, or is it not easier to hire resources already here?
Frankly, it was always part of our plan, and so yes, we do think it was cost effective. We think it's the most efficient and fastest way to provide some training, some additional support, and make sure that all of our LUMA team are working to world-class standards in health and safety and their approach to their trade. So yes, we think it's the fastest way to get ourselves there, which is what makes it cost effective.
I have a few more questions. I'd like to know how many employees you finally acquired from PREPA. I'd also like to pinpoint on some questions my colleagues made regarding response to an emergency, given that we're in the middle of a hurricane season. People are worried about response time. What are your priorities on that sense? And also, how are you working on being more transparent in your operations? And can you give us maybe some core examples on what you're doing?
Sure. So Number of PREPA employees that we hired as of the 1st of June was just about 1,200. And that number has come up a little bit since then. So I would say it continues to increase a little bit, albeit not dramatically. I think your second question is around preparedness for storm response and hurricane season. And, we've had substantial training in our teams. That training is still going on. I can tell you that, we're closely monitoring Tropical Storm Elsa as an example. We placed our own LUMA Emergency Operations Center, or LEOC, on level 4 alert yesterday morning. We continue to work very closely with Premby, and that positioning of our emergency response will obviously continue throughout storm season. So, we've spoken earlier about access to materials and additional fleet that are on the island. And so we continue to not only focus on making LUMA stronger each and every day, but, we keep an eye on these approaching storms and react to them accordingly. I think your third question was around what's our view of transparency, and how do we, by way of example, ensure that the business we're carrying out is done in a transparent way. And I recognize for many people, LUMA's approach to transparency may well be different than PREPA's legacy approach to transparency. The outage mapping and the outage information is certainly one priority for us as we move forward. I think the most obvious thing that we will begin to do is publish our metrics, right? And you will remember a number of months ago I spoke about the metrics work that we did with PREPA to try and establish baselines. That docket is still in front of the PREB, and we'll get finalized, I'm certain, over the next couple of months. But LUMA's obligation then is to, on a routine basis, publish our own performance against those metrics. And our own performance metrics are things like our own health and safety of our employees, things like outage rates for customers and response time for customers, things like number of calls that we've received, wait times in our call center, all of those items. I guess the other way that we will achieve transparency is again with the PREB. So the information that's provided to the PREB is on the PREB website. It in itself is public, and it's for all to see. We've received some commentary. For example, we submitted a very early response to the Montesius event that the PREB requested us for, and we requested confidential treatment for some of those applications. And we received criticism for that. And our response is that there are materials in those dockets and in that information, like detailed engineering information, that for a variety of reasons with critical infrastructure should not be published, should not be made public. That doesn't mean the people that need to see it can't, but there's a process they need to follow. I would say one of the other items that we often ask for confidential treatment on is cost estimates related to large project work. And the reason we do that is we want to create a competitive environment when we go out to tender to get this work done and when we award the work. So I would just ask that people, and we're prepared to talk about any of that, but I would ask that people understand the rationale for the confidential treatment. It's not about hiding anything. It's actually about getting to the best outcome for customers.
Monica.
Yes, hi everyone. I have a question. Due to the blackouts, many people may have had losses or damage to their belongings. How can claims be made? How many have there been signs you have been here? And who pays for it? LUMA?
Yeah, so the claims process is the same as the PREPA process. And I believe that, you can begin that process by visiting a customer service center. I don't have a sense of how many claims have been made through the first month. And who pays is it actually goes into the cost of service. This is a function, again, I take us back to, this is a function of the fragility and the state of the assets that we're all operating, and we're also focused on improving. And so, the cost of those claims find their way back into operating costs, and they find their way back into the cost of operating the business.
The system is working. That is the application. Because I have because I know about rumors.
The application for a claim?
Yes.
Yes, I believe it is, but you were about to give me an example, I suppose, where it wasn't. So.
No, I question about. I ask because I know that some people in the different apps write about this problem.
Okay.
When access in the program or the apps and try to claim.
Monica, I guess we're not super clear on what your question is.
I believe it's working, but.
Okay.
Hay personas que dicen que han escrito en las redes de que tienen problemas en cuando quieren poner y hacer su reclamación.
¿En algún canal en particular?
No, a través de las redes.
Ok, pero
quería saber si había algún problema con eso.
No que tengamos conocimiento, no.
Ok. Gracias.
Por nada. Gerardo, you had another question?
Yes, I have.
Please go ahead.
Stensby, I would like to know the status on your investigation on Monacillo's incident, please.
Sure. The investigation is still continuing. We're doing, we're carrying out our own forensic analysis, engineering analysis. We need to do that, obviously, for a number of reasons. We need to support insurance. We need to clearly understand what happened so that we can take appropriate action. If you're asking for when will that be completed, I would say that we're probably still 2 to 3 weeks away from finalizing the results of that. And when we do finalize it, we will submit it to the PREB accordingly.
Eva.
Yes, good morning. I just have a good question about Monacillos. In one of the plans you submitted to the PREP, there is a mention to the effect that the Energy Control Center, which is in Monacillos, it's going to be moved someplace else. That's like a future plan. I'm wondering how much would that cost? Because it appears to me as a major operation. So how much?
Well, it will be in our, it will be in those, at least in round numbers, it'll be that concept will be in the system remediation plan work, Ava, but, I think I would say the Monacillos Energy Management Center, just like a substantial amount of the transmission and distribution assets is very, very poor state of repair. It's obviously the heart of the system. It's the most critical part of the system, and it will be one of the early places where we tap into federal funding, FEMA funding, in order to make a substantial improvement. The value and the importance of that facility is, back to one of the very earlier conversations, but the better tools, the better equipment, the more technology that is in that facility can make broad cost improvements and reliability improvements across the entire system. And so, I always view the Energy Management Center or the control center of any electric utility as kind of the nerve center of the utility. That's where people are working 24 hours a day. That's where we work hard to make sure we get the lowest cost generation dispatched, but that's also where we work hard to make sure that we're maintaining enough system reserve and we're getting the most reliable electricity out to customers. So, I would say one of the most important things.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir, but do you know where you're going to move it?
No.
Okay, okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, it's fine.
I don't see any hands up. Does anybody else have a question they'd like to ask Mr. Stensby now? It looks like the answer is no. So, oh, Sylvia, there you are. Sylvia, go ahead.
Okay. It's kind of not clear to me. It's kind of muddy. The 2,500 employees. Then you said that you recruited 1,200 from PREPA, and that you brought personnel from the states. So can you really give us a clear picture at this point? How many of your 2,050 supposed employees are from the United States that eventually will leave? How many are ones recruited here? And of those, how many were originally from PREPA?
Yeah, I can. There's about 250 that have come from outside of Puerto Rico in various roles. There's about, as I said, slightly over 1,200 that have come from PREPA. The difference in the math were non-PREPA people that we recruited here.
Adriana, you had another question?
Yeah, when LUMA arrived, obviously the government was very insistent that LUMA was going to better the electrical grid and the system. I'd like to know when those projects and those works are going to begin. I don't know if you're going to, you're going to install more poles. I don't know, if you're going to do more internal in the substation, more work in those areas. But what are you going to do? What are the, the priorities, and when will those works begin?
So I think that's a great question. And I would tell you that, our very first focus was to put in place some better customer tools, and some of which our customers have already taken advantage of in the first 30 days. Our priorities across the remaining, call it part of the year, are to substantially get on top of vegetation management, and that factually will take us more than the 2021 calendar year, but that's an important priority to begin some additional work on street lighting. And then I think the most important work is probably behind the scenes. It's to begin to replace in a more meaningful way some of the infrastructure that just continues to break. right? We find ourselves responding to the same problem 3 or 4 times in the first 30 days. And that's obviously not cost effective. It obviously is causing, high levels of customer outages. And so whether those are, as I described earlier, mechanical deficiencies, replacing, repairing, restoring transmission lines, maintaining, replacing and upgrading substations and breakers in substations. It's a very, very broad portfolio, but the work, I can tell you the work has already begun, and will continue on for the next decade. We've set out in those very substantial system remediation plan documents our broad program of work over the next decade. And although I wouldn't encourage any of you to go read the thousands of pages, I think there is quite a good summary at the front of those documents that helps set out the investment plans for the next few years. We will also, maybe the other thing I can add is you will see us in the following months as we undertake some of this restoration work. We will obviously communicate it publicly.
Are those documents available? Where can we get them? I'm sorry if they're, obvious to get, but I don't know where they are.
The system remediation plan that Mr. Stensby refers to is available publicly in the PREB website. Well, we can certainly make them available to you.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Stensby? I think we can wrap it up. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Buen día a todos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.